Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Scott Geirman. Scott, a fun one for us. Dodgers beat the Nationals 9-3, and a pretty comfortable one. They take an early lead, they give it up, but then from there kind of extend their lead to a comfortable margin for most of the game. It's nice after the long road trip to come home and see the Nationals on the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a really comfortable 9-3 win. It's just unfortunate Alex Vesia and makes it a little tight there at some point, but it's good to see the offense flex their muscles. JD really find some barrels, and Freddie just continuing to do what Freddie does in the month of May.
Yeah, it felt like one of those games, and we'll dive into this a little bit, where the Dodgers studs kind of carried the load. Tony Gonsolin, who we'll get to, looked really good. The top of the lineup, the top six guys in the lineup, to be specific, all have hits in this one. That carries them. Vesia, one of the more shaky arms, if not the most shaky arm they've got in the bullpen after being recalled today. He struggles. The bottom of the Dodgers lineup struggles. But again, it's the top of the lineup. It's the top of the rotation in Tony Gonsolin, those types of players getting the job done. Evan Phillips getting out of trouble here as well. I'm curious for you, as we look over this, we're going to dive into the box score. We're going to dive into player of the game. We'll get to some questions as well. Where do you want to start on this one, Scott? Is it Tony Gonsolin? Is it a couple of those bats that you've mentioned? What's the big storyline, the big takeaway from you from this one?
Well, for me, I'll go a few different spots, all positive. It's good to see the starting pitching. So when the Dodgers are going well, their starting pitchers are going deep into games, and that just gives them more of an opportunity to put up runs and keep it real close. So to have Gonsolin go that distance, and he had a kind of a close call a few different times there, warning track shots. I know they talked about that on the broadcast, but it's taking care of business against a last place team and winning the games that they should win. And that, the Nationals are not a rollover. They make contact. So it could pose some things, but they're just not slugging. So for Tony Gonsolin to go out there, get some much needed outs, get some length, and especially tomorrow with Syndergaard on the mound, he did exactly what he needed to do. So taking care of business and the offense flexing their muscles. And yeah, we'll get to the bottom half of the order, the bottom third, essentially.
Yeah, let's talk Gonsolin. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Excuse me. Sort of I would say a mixed bag for Tony Gonsolin, which sounds surprising if you didn't watch the game, because you're looking at that and saying 5 base runners, just 1 earned run, 6 innings. He only threw 70 pitches. Realistically, I think we were all pretty surprised that he didn't go back out there for the 7th inning, which we can talk about. But the flip side to this, you mentioned lots of warning track fly balls. You look at the StatCast stuff, not a lot of swing and miss, just 4 whiffs on 34 swings tonight. That's a 12% whiff rate. Not very good there. So he was pitching to contact, which isn't what you want to do. Obviously controlled the zone well enough to just get 2 walks, but only 2 strikeouts, lots of high exit velocity, hard hit baseballs against Tony Gonsolin. So kind of a mixed bag. I'm curious, Scott, I asked this question right when the game was starting, kind of where you sit on Tony Gonsolin. 10 hard hit balls allowed by Gonsolin tonight, by the way. We know what the ERA is. It goes down again after this one, 1.77 ERA on the season. The metrics behind that aren't positive. The StatCast numbers are average to below average for the most part. What have you made of Tony Gonsolin so far? Because tonight felt like pretty representative, I would say, of what his season has been. Low earned runs, and yet you kind of are scratching your head saying, is this a mirage or is this the real deal?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to gauge because I haven't seen him be overly dominant. He has been good in terms of ERA, but he hasn't been overly dominant in any start. I would say against the Padres on the 14th, he had his best outing. He 5 innings, 2 hits allowed, 6 punch outs. He's just been really solid. I'm not going to say he's not having as good a year last year because, made his first All-Star team. He looked phenomenal. Yeah. So he's sneakily getting the job done. He's got a pretty high FIP right now. So it's something to keep an eye on. And there's definitely always room for regression, and that's okay because he doesn't need to be, in the wherever he's at right now. I think he's, bordering the line of like sub 1.8 around there. He might be a 1.77 at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's okay. He's providing them with incredibly valuable innings where they do need it. Julio out, Kershaw still, coming back and to regain his form, Syndergaard being who he is. So just like you said, he was missing a lot of spots today. It didn't seem like he had any feel. I know he had the one inning where he went 0-1, base hit, 0-2, hit by pitch. And that's just bad luck. That's tough stuff.
Yeah.
So he just lacked the feel that we normally see. But again, his fastball was really playing well. I enjoyed seeing that. He was pounding the zone when he needed to. He's just missing spots when when you need to make that final pitch to get a strikeout.
So just 70 pitches to get through 6 innings. We know that the bullpen for the Dodgers has been one of the stories, how overworked they are. Noah Syndergaard set to pitch tomorrow. Were you surprised that Gonsolin came out? I mean, we just talked about how kind of the performance felt like a bit of a mirage with all the long fly balls he was giving up. But just at 70 pitches with how hard the bullpen has been taxed, I was pretty surprised they didn't throw him back out there for the 7th.
Yeah, I was kind of a bit surprised as well, but they were hitting the ball pretty hard all night. It just wasn't going. They weren't slugging. They're doing what the Nationals haven't done all year, not slug. So maybe they were getting ahead of that. Maybe they felt that it was a good spot for Vesia. You know how Dave likes to do that, struggling, just like he did with, Yency. Yency's found it at the moment. He was finding spots where he could be successful. And, if they feel that Vesia will need to be a piece to the bullpen or could be, then 4-1 against the Nationals last place team who they don't slug is definitely a spot for him. It's just, Ruiz comes up and bangs a first pitch homer. So that kind of blows up there. And, that's about it. So that kind of put a sour note for me.
2/3 of an inning for Vesia, 3 hits allowed and a walk, ends up 2 earned runs, the strikeout as well. You mentioned the home run, a little bit of a bad luck home run. I joked. I mean, it was first row,
high fastball. Yeah.
First row, left field seats, right over the short wall in the corner, but not great. On the day he gets recalled. Gavin Stone optioned earlier today. Alex Vesia called up. He had been good in the minor leagues. Obviously his first appearance back down in the minors was rough. Since then, he had been pretty good. What do you do with Vesia at this point after a performance like this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you try to find another couple spots for him, but it kind of seems like he's just, doesn't have it. For me, it feels a lot of just, overuse, and anyone can look good down in AAA if you really have the stuff to do it. And Vesia can get some swings. He plays up in the zone, and that's tough to hit. But in the big leagues, margin for error is so small. And right now he's just missing these spots. And just like you saw, one fastball, you're able to put a barrel on it. It's a difference between an out in AAA or a home run. And I'll just add real fast. I see Matt Moreno tweeting out that Dave Roberts' reason for taking Tony Gonsolin out was just, he mentioned he wasn't as sharp all night. And that was largely the reason for taking him out. Roberts credited Gonsolin for a really gritty performance. And I agree. He battled through some really tough lack of command.
Yeah. So there you go. There's the tweet from Matt. He's at the stadium covering this one. So like Scott said, Robert said he felt like Gonsolin wasn't particularly sharp, which we all tend to agree with. That was the reason for taking him out. But yeah, I mean, part of pitching, right, Scott, is being able to, hey, when you don't have your best stuff and when you're having you're giving up a lot of contact, is can you somehow get through it? And how much of that is luck? How much of that is grit, to use Dave Roberts' word? I guess that's beauty's in the eye of the beholder there. So Vesia struggles, makes the game tight. Phillips gets out of the jam, but then the Dodger offense ends up putting this one away. 9-3 again, the final score. We'll get to some questions here in a moment. But let's talk about the offense. Let's talk Freddie Freeman first. He has now reached base in, I believe it's 19 straight games. Somebody was saying earlier he has set the franchise record for extra base hits in a month. I mean, to say this guy's on a heater almost feels like an understatement. 4 hits tonight, including the home run. I don't know what to say. The guy's an absolute machine.
Yeah, like almost a 1,200 OPS in the month of May. Dude's got 6 homers, 26 RBI, at 11 walks in there. He's just on another planet. We said from the first AB on, where he just kind of, flared, flared one, didn't fall, comes back next thing, gets that base hit. And from there, it just seemed like he wasn't going to be stopped. He had it keyed in, and his timings just all around look good. We don't appreciate him enough.
Yeah.
And Freddie Freeman being here, people talk about, we'd like to see higher batting average. We'd like to see someone go up there, battle for an AB and put a good swing. Freddie does it all. Freddie has his zone awareness I don't think I've seen a hitter like Freddie Freeman as a fan. And I'm very fortunate to have him in a Dodgers uniform. And he'll be the next jersey that I buy for many reasons. That he's just a world-class guy and the model hitter for everyone that we'd like to see. So he's a key piece at the top of the lineup, and you can't really pitch around him. The only thing you can do is pitch and put him on base. Yeah. Because if you leave it in the zone and he's got it, he's going to take what he's going to get. Yeah. Slap it to left field. If you put it out there and he's able to barrel it, you're going to see him running around the bases. So it's just he makes things look way too easy because he's just been doing this for as long as we can know,
Yeah. After tonight, he is second in the National League, second in all Major League Baseball in batting average, hitting .344. He's got a .416 on base and a .589 slugging percentage. So just ridiculous numbers there from Freddie Freeman. Yeah. His on base percentage puts him fourth in Major League Baseball, third in the National League. And then the slugging percentage, I believe, is first in the National League, depending on if JD Martinez qualifies. We had that debate earlier, but a ridiculous stat line from Freddie Freeman. Let's talk JD Martinez, though, because he's the other guy who deserves mention. He hits a home run for a third straight game. This guy struggled a little bit out of the gates. There were some people that were skeptical of the $10 million investment that the Dodgers made in a DH only, but he has sure made Andrew Friedman look smart the way he's hitting, because again, depending on if he qualifies for slugging percentage or not, the number of at-bats, it's only Aaron Judge who has a better slugging percentage than JD Martinez. Again, home runs in 3 straight, including an absolute bomb to dead center field to put this one out of reach.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, a good bit ago. It's been, platoon baseball for the Dodgers, kind of even before the National League DH. It's kind of been, where can we put that, matchup for an advantageous hitter in there? And that's been your platoon. But to have JD Martinez as your everyday DH, and he knows what he's going to do when he shows up to the ballpark. And that's kind of what he is. Because like we've said, I know you've hinted that you want him to see him in left field to, deepen that lineup. But JD Martinez knows his role, and he is as good as it gets. And once he figured himself out, reinvented himself with the Tigers, and made him himself into one of the most technical and, really mechanically sound hitters. And he's fun, man. I can't say enough things about him. Once he heats up, he's an offense. I tweeted out that it's refreshing to have a designated hitter who can, carry an offense and go up there and change a game just himself. So he's on fire. Let's take it. And man, you get a couple other bats heating up around the lineup and kind of lengthen that. It's scary. It's really scary.
Yeah, 610 slugging percentage for JD Martinez, also hitting .277. The on-base percentage, kind of the only weak spot if you're looking through it. A .312 on-base percentage isn't very good. But if you're hitting .277 with a 610 slugging percentage, people aren't gonna worry too much about what your on-base percentage looks like. I see some people in the chat also commenting. Jason Hayward, sneaky, heating up. He was the one that got the offense started today with a solo home run in the second inning as well. So, I mean, I was joking. If you missed it, we had a live watch along over on Playback. We'll be back on Friday night doing one of those for the Dodgers game against the Yankees. But, I mean, Jason Hayward, I don't get, Scott, how a guy stands that far towards the edge, the outside edge of the batter's box, and then takes a fastball off the plate outside and pulls it to right center field. That's like a level of strength that I could not dream of personally.
It's what a 6'5" dude can do, man. Yeah. He knows his range, and that just, you see also, pitchers just like they did tonight. He stands so far away, they come inside, and that's way inside. Yeah. So we've seen him go on these streaks, and that's, it's okay. Like Jason Hayward had to reinvent himself a little bit to come back with the Dodgers. And that's why you've seen, kind of a maturation through the season. He went through some lulls, and that's to be expected. But when he's on, you're going to see barreled up balls for a long time, like a week or two span. And that's generally what we've seen with him. Streaky guy. But he grades out so well. Max exit velocity. He's walking when he needs to, and he's playing really great defense. So there's a lot of possibilities. I'm sure Andrew Friedman is very happy to bring him on a minor league contract, because now I'm sure as hell they feel comfortable putting him in right field, and he's already, played very well. He's 86 percentile outs above average. He's been just a great addition. And at the deadline, Andrew Friedman's going to take that into account, that if they do need to, they want to bring your dream into way and, keep Mookie Betts and put him in the infield for extended time, I'm sure that's something that they'd be comfortable doing when there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound. Plug Jason Hayward in and you don't feel any different.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And obviously, as people are commenting, the outfield, I joked, is perpetually in flux. Trace Thompson got off to a good start. James Outman got off to a good start. There were some skeptics early on around Jason Hayward, but then he figured it out. And then people started crapping on Trace Thompson. Then it was David Peralta. I was getting mentions the other day that we don't talk how badly David Peralta has been playing, which he's hitting like 300 in the month of May. So I don't know what people want to talk about Peralta, but the outfield, I'll just leave it at, is perpetually moving in different directions. Who you trust out there seems to change day by day. But of all the guys, I think you could make the case Hayward has been the most consistent. Outman had the incredible start and has been really, really rough for the last 30 days or so, whereas Hayward feels like he's given you the most consistency day to day. So something to keep an eye on is what the Dodgers decide to do out there. Let's talk player of the game, and then we'll get to some live questions here. Scott, as we look through this one, we mentioned a few guys offensively who had big nights. We mentioned Tony Gonsolin giving the team 6 innings on just 70 pitches, limiting the damage to just 1 earned run. Give me your first choice for who's on the top of the podium for player of the game tonight.
Freddie Freeman for me, 4 for 5, homer, RBI, 2 runs. He just goes up there and sets the tone. He just table setter for everyone. I just can't say enough about him. For me, that's my one. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think Outman. I'm reading the comments and trying to answer at the same time. It's got to be Freddie Freeman. I mean, you put 4 hits together, including the bomb. I don't know. There's nothing else you can really say there. 5 at bats, 2 runs, 4 hits, 1 RBI, 1 home run, 3 of them singles. Did try to stretch 1 into a double, which kind of cost the team a run. Ended up not mattering. But Freddie Freeman gets the top spot to me. I think the interesting question, Scott, as we kind of fill out the rest of our podium here, who gets the next spot? JD Martinez, 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs. You got Jason Hayward, 2 for 2, a home run and 2 walks. You got Muncy, 2 for 5. You got Gonsolin, 6 innings, 1 earned run. Who are you putting in that number 2 spot?
I'm going to say JD Martinez for me. I'm honestly going to go do that because that it's at that point of the game. It's before that swing. It's a 4-3 ball game, bottom of the 7th with 2 outs. He extends that, makes it a 6-3 game, and then you can kind of exhale, and then you can go back and play your bullpen matchups and go from there. So I'm going to say JD. I think it's like you said, 3rd straight game with a home run. Yeah. And I'm gonna be right there. It's just just when you need it, right? Slug. Yeah. And I want that. Like it's just off on base percentage, not always going to be there because he's going to hunt, and when he's hitting the ball, he's doing damage. And that's a welcome thing for me. Singles, all well and good. Get on base, but if JD's in there to just hit, sure as hell I'm happy when he's putting it in the gap or putting it over the fence.
610 slugging percentage, like you said, for JD. Man. Give me Jason Hayward in the silver medal spot for me. I like that he reaches base 4 times today. Obviously, the solo home run puts him ahead early in that 2nd inning. So Jason Hayward in the number 2 spot, and then I'll take JD Martinez for that big swing in the number 3 role. You going Hayward or Gonsolin? Who you got in that 3rd spot?
I'm going to take Gonsolin, just because of how it projects out tomorrow. I think that getting 6 innings from your starter, that warrants it. Anytime. It's tough to do that right now, and he could have gone more. But Dave Roberts, I respect that decision that he just didn't have it. I'm sure a couple centimeters on the bat, and that some baseballs leave the yard. Yeah. So damage could have been worse, but Tony Gonsolin going 6 innings, allowing 3 hits, limiting damage, defense picking him up, and maybe the baseball and a little bit of, other factors helping that out. But I'm going to say Tony Gonsolin, giving him 6 innings. That's much needed. Dodgers do need that stability because the last thing we need to talk about is how the starters aren't going deep enough into games.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you could nitpick all you want, but 6 innings, 1 earned run, 70 pitches. It's hard to argue with that regardless of kind of what the rest of the stuff said. Okay. David's got Freeman 1, JD 2, Hayward 3. So definitely, in line. I see a lot of the same things. Max Muncy, again, I think kind of the 4th guy that probably deserves mention. I mean, Mookie Betts, look, he was 2 for 5 tonight. So you could make a case Mookie Betts belongs in that conversation as well. Kudos to Evan Phillips, 4 outs, no base runners. Justin Brule, a perfect 9th as well. So good on the Dodgers bullpen outside of Vesia for getting stuff done. All right, let's get to some questions here. We appreciate those. Throw those in the chat. Started off with question and we'll get to some. Andrew asks, what's Vesia's long-term future on the roster? I would say this, Scott. I'm not out on Vesia, period. This is a guy who has given us a sample size of success. We're not talking about a guy who just had like a good month or something like that. This is a guy who actually, over the past couple of seasons, has given you some good production. 2021, 41 appearances, 2.25 ERA, expected ERA of 2.81. Last season, 63 appearances with a 2.15 ERA, again, a 2.79 expected ERA. So we're talking about 104 appearances with an expected ERA of 2.80. That's really freaking good from Alex Vesia. I know this season has been really, really bad, tonight notwithstanding. And so I think Vesia, I send him back down pretty quickly, see if he can get some things dialed in. But I'm not out on Vesia, period, altogether. That's me personally.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, it's the easy thing is to say to just cut bait, but it's like he's under team control through, I think, 2027, like that. So it's like relievers are volatile. You never know. And his peak, we've seen him at his peak, and it's a dominant left-handed reliever who, as a fastball can play up in the zone, and that's valuable. And the Dodgers take a lot of value in that. And there's a reason why that they saw that success with OKC, and they called him back up, and Dave put him in a spot immediately. So I think that they trust him in that as well. And let's let them tinker a bit with him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, like, if he stays up for a bit, but if he, I would say, struggles with one more time, I wouldn't even be surprised if they send him down right now. Yeah. But I think he'll be up for a bit, and they'll pick another spot to get him in the game. But I don't see them cutting bait with him unless things get, disastrous. And I understand that things have been bad, but he's got team control, so it's not going to happen. He'll be in the organization. Let him go into OKC, pitch there. You need depth, and let him figure it out.
Yeah, he's got options remaining. Obviously, this season he can be optioned. Next season he can be optioned, so he won't be going anywhere. Alulia wants to know, Yankees series, you excited for this weekend? The Yankees coming to town, Scott?
I'm excited. I was at the last time they were in LA. I bought, oh my gosh, that was when I was a kid. I couldn't afford tickets then, but I remember we sat all the way down the foul by the, all the way left field line, lower reserve. And I was so excited. Like, that was like Dodgers, Yankees. That was the ticket. And I'm excited to see Aaron Judge in LA. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It added intrigue with the starting pitchers that the Dodgers have announced for that series.
Saturday.
Michael Grove and Bobby Miller expected to pitch in that series. Yeah. So it's not exactly the who's who necessarily, but that's a big spot for a couple of young guys. Should be fun for them. Hopefully it's fun for them. Hopefully they're not turning around and watching Aaron Judge baseballs go over the fence. EB wants to know who's pitching tomorrow. Patrick Corbin versus Noah Syndergaard. So if you like runs being scored, let me introduce you to a baseball game you will be excited about. A couple guys that will not be very good. Michael asks, which reliever should the Dodgers target at the trade deadline if Reyes and Hudson aren't it? There was, I'm not going to pretend to know all of the relief pitchers who are available via trade, but I did want to include a Daniel Hudson update. If you missed it, DodgerBlue.com, we had an update today that he got a shot, and basically he's going to give some things a go over the next couple of weeks and see how things feel in his knee. So that's the update on Daniel Hudson. Alex Reyes, Scott, have we gotten an update on him lately? I feel like he's a name that I'm excited about. I know he was transferred to the 60-day IL, but have we gotten any updates that you know of on Alex Reyes?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I haven't heard about Alex Reyes in a long time. I know that there was reports that he would be, might be available like in, early June. I'm not so sure about that, considering it was a shoulder. So I think they're going to slow play that. That was a, very low buy situation because he just had shoulder surgery last May. So we'll see. I'm not even sure if they prepared for that yet. So I can't give you the best answer on it. I won't even try.
Yeah. I mean, look, we haven't gotten an update since he was moved to the 60-day IL about a month and a half ago. He was expected from the beginning to miss multiple months. But do you think, Scott, without naming names, I mean, do you think that the bullpen is a place that the Dodgers are going to need to go out and sign some people? Obviously, Blake Trinan is another name who could potentially be available at some point this season out there as well. Do you think that's sort of an area of the roster they're going to need to target?
I would say maybe. I think Daniel Hudson, people forget Daniel Hudson when he was right last year before his knee exploded, unfortunately, because he was amazing in the closer role. Like they were ready to hand him the keys, and I was ready for it too. So when we get him back, and he's right, he can definitely be, slide right in there. Having that back end is going to be terrific. Evan Phillips, Daniel Hudson, I'm ready for it. If Yancey's right, that's a three that you really can count on.
Yeah.
So I would say the only thing to look at maybe is if Daniel Hudson falters, but a name to watch out for if the Angels are really not in, I would try to give them a call about Matt Moore. Like if Matt Moore that's one. If people want to look into it, he's been terrific. I'm glad that I wanted the Dodgers to sign him, but they just had so many options. And with Vesia faltering, Caleb Ferguson holding it down. If they don't like what they have in Brule, I would give them a call. I just have one name. That's it. I don't know anybody else. If you want me to look into it more and talk about it, hit me up on Twitter and we'll chat, and I'd be happy to.
Yeah, there you go. Jason wants to know, how many trips through the rotation do you feel the Dodgers can hold this winning percentage? Winning percentage over 600 right now. I believe that's the best record in the National League at 34-22. The rotation obviously right now is not necessarily where you want it to be. Dustin May is out. Julio Urias is on the 15-day IL with a little bit of a setback. So not expected back as quickly as maybe they originally anticipated, which huge surprise, I know, to all those people expecting the Dodgers to have been accurate with a guess on an injured starting pitcher there. Tony Gonsolin, as we've said, hasn't been necessarily as good as the numbers suggest. Clayton Kershaw has been a bit up and down after being pitcher of the month for the first month of the season. So do you think the Dodgers, as looking at the rotation, Gavin Stone struggling in DFA, Michael Grove now taking his place, Noah Syndergaard not being great, do you think this is a recipe for a little bit of a slide coming up, or do you think because the offense, JD Martinez, Freddie Freeman, etc., have been playing at the level they are, that maybe they can withstand a little bit of dip in pitching performance?
I think they can, but I think the pitching has been there. We're just starting to see them put together a lot of solid performances in a row. A huge reason why the Dodgers are so consistent year after year is that they have starting pitching that can, avoid run scoring. And I feel like they just haven't done that at a level that we're used to. Yeah. So if they're turning a corner, and if Bobby Miller can stay up, I'm not sure how much they'll allow him to go. If they're just he's, we have to pull it back a little bit, then fine. But if they find some stability, then I think they can. I really think they won 111 games last year.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that, but they're having an incredible month of May. Yeah. And they're in first place for a reason. It's just because there's not a massive division lead that people feel like, they're walking a fine line, but it's just that the D-backs are playing pretty all right baseball. And I think the Dodgers can roll.
Pretty all right baseball. The Diamondbacks, to your point, have the second best record in the National League.
Yeah, man. With the Braves. It's tough.
Yeah, won 7 of their last 10. The Giants have won 7 of their last 10 as well. The Padres, 8 games back, 1 game ahead of the Colorado Rockies in the win column for those keeping track. Here's a great question from our guy Blake. Which restaurant has the best chicken parm? Blake wants to know. My answer, because I've had a second to think about it. I went to Lavo in Las Vegas and ordered chicken parm that was the biggest piece of chicken parm I've ever had in my life. And it was delicious. Some context here. This conversation about chicken parm was brought up again because Blake in particular said that he prefers chicken parm with Alfredo sauce instead of marinara sauce, which to me is just an incredible take. So I had to give Blake a shout out on that one. Scott, you have any chicken parm takes here besides IHOP?
I don't want to talk about food, man. We did that the whole live. We had such a good baseball talk going on right now, but no, Blake, Blake willingly ordered that from IHOP, and that's all I got to say. Roast him, please. At him, flame him out. Just do it. But I don't want to talk about food.
Roger, is Bobby Miller in the rotation to stay no matter who comes back? What do you think? Couple good outings from Bobby Miller to start his career.
Looks great, right? Looks confident. So that's the biggest thing. That's something that it's unfortunate Stone really couldn't put that together. He had a meteoric rise, and Bobby Miller's been highly touted for a bit, but that confidence that Bobby has in the mound, come out there and just toss just 100 without even having to worry about it. His stuff's playing up there. He's getting swings when stuff is missing. I would say he's missing his spots just a slight bit, but it's so good that he's got that dog. Everybody knows what that is.
We knew the stuff. We knew the stuff was going to be there. He's throwing 100 miles an hour deep into games, all that kind of thing. And as people have pointed out on Twitter, your stuff if you're throwing it like 100 miles an hour, I think somebody pointed it out and I'd have to go back and see the math. But when you go from 99 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour, the opponent's OPS drops like 40 points or something like that. So even if your stuff isn't amazing, if you're throwing it that hard, everything changes. Bobby Miller can do that for 5 innings plus. So, now the question, is he in the rotation to stay no matter what? I would say he's going to be in the rotation because I don't think there's a scenario where all of the Dodgers pitchers are healthy. If there was, and Urias was healthy and Kershaw was healthy and May got healthy and Gonsolin was healthy, then that's when it starts to get a little bit dicey. But I think the way he's pitched so far, and because of the fragility of some of these Dodgers starters, I think it's a pretty safe bet that I would include him in that group. Obviously, Syndergaard would be below him on my list at least. Justin asks, do you like this team's chance at pulling a blockbuster trade for a shortstop and or a pitcher? I know we talked, you were doing a look during the watch along, Scott, that the starting pitching market in the offseason is not going to be very good. The starting pitching market on the trade market might not be that great either. But do you think this is the year that the Dodgers cash in some of those, 40-man roster chips that they've got, prospects that are either about to get added to the 40-man or already on the 40-man, and make a move for an impact player or even two?
So I would say that it lines up that, yes, I think that is. I wish the class was better. And I think that a lot of people would agree that if you were to take a look at it, and this is a name that if you look out there, a lot of people are going to be talking about hopefully their team acquires, is Lucas Giolito. And he's just a guy with insane stuff. And when he's on, he's as electric as it comes. But it's very thin, and I don't see a Shohei Ohtani trade happening. That just would be for a team like the Dodgers that can just muscle someone with money.
Yeah.
I think that's something they refrain from doing unless Andrew Friedman thinks it will be their best option. I just don't think the Angels will sell that. I don't think that's a thing that they'll do unless they just get a ridiculous overpay, something way higher than the Nats got for Soto. So your pickings are pretty slim with starting pitchers. I would say Giolito. People should stay right there and kind of just wait and see what the schedule plays out and how the standings could play out, because a lot of teams are going to be in it because things are very, very tight around the league right now. Tim Anderson. I know everyone wants to talk Tim Anderson. Shortstops. The Brewers are in first place the last time I saw. So for them to commit to to wanting to deal Willy Adames is something that organizationally they'd have to feel they wouldn't be in a position for it, to want to keep him, and that it would be in their best interest to do it. But I think a lot of teams like the White Sox would want a middle infielder back. So I think that the conversation gets a little dicey. But Tim Anderson is one that it gives them a landing strip to have him the rest of this season, and he's got a very team-friendly option next season. So that's one. It's a low-hanging fruit. It's one that I even know Ken Rosenthal was talking about it. Just we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. I've said it multiple times. I don't like the idea of paying for shortstop for the simple reason that you're going to pay a premium on that position, and I'm not joking when I say it. I think Mookie Betts can play that position at a level that is competent enough to say, go get a corner outfielder. You're going to get a better bat than any of the shortstops we just mentioned, and it's going to cost you way less because that's just the price of a left fielder or a right fielder. You mentioned it earlier. Jason Hayward can play right field. David Peralta has been good defensively. James Outman, Chris Taylor. You just need 2 of those guys to be okay out of the 4, and then plug in some guy that you go acquire to be a hitter to mash lefties as well. I feel good about that setup. So I wouldn't go trading premium prospects to go get a shortstop. If Gavin Lux, if you thought he was going to be potentially the answer this year, give him a chance to go win the job again next year. Move Mookie Betts back to right field. That would be my approach. Starting pitching, I think would be the interesting one to watch. Again, we mentioned it a little bit on the live watch party, but we've said for a couple of years that the Dodgers have this surplus of prospects that are coming up, the Michael Busch types who are good enough to be at the major league level right now, and yet there's just not a spot for them. If you look at the Dodgers pitching, Nick Nastrini, Landon Knack, I mean, the whole AA rotation is absolutely ridiculous for the Dodgers right now. Pepio, Grove, I mean, just the number of guys they've got that could be pitching at a major league level. they just don't have room for all these dudes. And so do you cash in some of those chips in order to go get a guy like Lucas Giolito? I would rather overpay for a starter if I'm the Dodgers than I would a shortstop. That would be my opinion.
Yeah.
I bet they add an arm or two in the bullpen just because that's what Andrew Friedman does. They'll find some guy who's been DFA'd, or they'll find some guy they can acquire for cheap. But those would kind of be the types of moves I would make. I'd get a corner outfielder who can hit lefties. And if you want to make a splash, go get a Lucas Giolito, or, there's probably some starting pitcher we're not even thinking about yet who ends up hitting the market as well.
The last thing I'll add on that is that I think that, as Julio Urias insurance, basically for that, the off chance that he, does leave and the Dodgers don't feel that handing him, like we say, all the money. If they don't feel like that's in the cards, then I think that having another option to either immediately extend. I really like what the Mariners did in the acquiring Luis Castillo, and the Blue Jays did, and with Jose Barrios, acquire them. And I want to say it's the Blue Jays. It might be the Twins. Is it the Twins? I don't want to misspeak on that, but we'll just say the Mariners. I like what they did with Luis Castillo, high upside arm, extend him, and that's your guy. And I think the Dodgers have enough to do that. So I think it's a year that they should. Let's be a year early on prospects. Let's trade them while their stock is at an all-time high. And while you've got a surplus and you feel you have a surplus, offload some you feel you can, and go get someone who has done things at a big league level. And I couldn't think of a more fun arm like Lucas Giolito. When the dude's on, he's electric.
Yeah, I see people asking who the type of hitter is that I might be interested in targeting. It's tough just because you're kind of guessing at who's available. I mean, one name as I'm just scrolling through that I think is kind of an interesting one would be a guy like Ramon Laureano. Historically has hit lefties really, really well. He's got a weighted runs created plus, a 138 against lefties this year, 110 last year, 142 the year before, career 122 weighted runs created plus. The overall stat line isn't all that good. But again, small sample size against lefties, which is what the Dodgers need, is interesting. He's not a free agent until 2026. So you've got a little bit of team control over there. But I mean, those are the types of things that I'm looking for when it comes to players, is like, it's got to be on a team that's going to be selling. You imagine the A's would be selling, although a guy who's under team control for a couple of years, maybe they want to keep Laureano, but those are just the type of guys, 80th percentile outs above average out in the field as well. Playing some center field, I guess it's mostly right field. So, I mean, Laureano is an interesting name if I'm just sort of spitballing here and looking at a chart. Scotty, does that name sort of move the needle at all for you?
Yeah, defensive guy. It's just do you want to acquire? Because he has team control. It's going to be a bit. It's going to be a cost a little bit extra because of that. I think that the Dodgers might want to. They like to evaluate their options. They like to be sure on those. So acquiring a guy that's going to cost a little bit more because he has team control, they have to believe in him past that year, and he'll fit a role. So the Dodgers don't need much more than a guy who can lefties out there, unless they would like to eliminate one of their platoons. But with Peralta and Hayward, I think that they'd like to stick with that, because once you get someone that eliminates a platoon, it lessens their value just a slight bit. It pushes them more into a bench role. So I think that's something that they'd want to avoid. Adam Duvall is another name that I'd like people to think about. He had a wrist injury early on. He'll be back fairly soon. It's just some names to toss around. They're going to hunt, just very platoon guys, players who can fit a role, play a corner outfield. And if you want high upside, Duvall, Brent Rooker is one that's a long shot. He's had a pretty hot start in a kind of an outlier season, kind of turned things around. But Laureano's a good name. It's just people need to go take a look. Whatever you like and you think that they're going to acquire, we just kind of have to see. Once it gets closer, they're going to buy low on somebody, and that's kind of how they do it. So.
Yeah, and I think the Laureano, just as I look at the profile, is kind of the type of player. You mentioned the contract, first year of arbitration this year. I can't tell looking at Spot Track if he's got 2 more years of team control or if he's got 4 years of arbitration or what's exactly going on. But aside from that, that's the profile of a guy who hits lefties well, doesn't have a great overall stat line, but also plays good defense. That's the type of value where you throw him out there to hit lefties. Don't play him against righties because you've got plenty of guys that can hit righties. He plays the field well. Those are the types of those are the gosh, geez Louise. Those are the types of players that's the the general framework of the type of player that I think I would be interested in. Dodger Blue wants to know if they should buy low on Joey Gallo. And my only question is who gave Blake the login information to this account. So yeah, no dumpster diving, as Michael would say. So that's a no on Joey Gallo is in Michael's book. Okay, last question here, Scott, and then we'll get out of here. I apologize. I'd have to scroll up. I believe it was Craig who asked the question. I'll see if I can find it. But he asked, do you think this team wins 100 games? They're basically winning 60% of their games right now. That puts them right at about 97, 98. Here's the question on the season. So they would have to improve, actually play better from here on out. But you mentioned the month of May, they've been red hot. I believe they lead Major League Baseball in wins, or at least the National League. Do you think this team gets to 100 wins?
I'm going to say no. Okay. I'm going to say like 96.
Okay. So which would be a slight decrease, a slight tail off from where they are at. But yes. I mean, it's interesting because when we talked at the beginning of the year, I feel like the conversations that I was having with Matt, at least on our Sunday night show, was in that 94, 95 range. I took the over on that. I think 96, I believe, is where I started the season at. And I think that's about right. I like that they're on pace for 98-ish right now. Gives them a little bit of leeway. I will say, and Scott, you tell me if you agree with this, the fact that the Diamondbacks are pushing them just a game and a half back in that division and the value that comes with winning the division, given the new playoff format, I think that could force the Dodgers to maybe play a little bit more aggressively if this keeps up. I mean, I thought the Padres were going to be the team challenging them, if not beating them in the division. The Padres are 8 games back. I'm not saying that's a wrap on the Padres, but the Diamondbacks, I had them third in the division and they are exceeding expectations. So I think that could help a little bit. Like if this is a 2-game race with 10 games to go, the Dodgers might have to keep their foot on the gas a little bit more than otherwise, which could help them get to 97, 98, 99 wins, somewhere in there.
Man, Jeff, you're talking, 2-game race with 10 games.
I'm just saying.
2-game race with 10 games? That'll be fun. No, I'm saying that'll be fun. I'm not saying it's impossible. That's not what I'm saying.
Are you buying the Diamondbacks as a real team?
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, sure, they're a real team in terms of that they're playing the brand of baseball they need to play to win games. But their starting pitching, led by Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, they're getting good production in a lot of places. But if that falters a tiny bit, and young guys, they have a lot of young players on that roster, not a lot of veteran depth there. I think they're for real. I think they can hang right there. I don't know about 2 games with 10 to play, but that might help them at the deadline. That might help the Dodgers at the deadline make some moves. So, that could be a good thing. We haven't seen that a bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, Ray, I'm seeing this comment, 97 feels a bit optimistic for the Dodgers. It's just interesting to me because that would be a worse win percentage than they currently have. So if you just map out the current win percentage times 162 games, we're talking about 98 wins. And I'm not saying they're going to do that, but I'm also saying I don't feel like this has been the perfect scenario for the Dodgers as far as how they've played, right? I don't feel like the Dodgers are exceeding expectations based on what I'm seeing. I mean, we could talk about all the guys in the bullpen who have struggled offensively. I think they've been probably at expectation level. Mookie has been good. Freddie's been incredible. JD Martinez has been really, really good. You had a hot Outman start, but he's already sort of cooled off and come back down to earth. Miguel Vargas hasn't really given you much. Peralta, Trace Thompson, Chris Taylor have all been disappointments. The starting rotation, Julio has had his worst season in a long time. Clayton Kershaw has been good, but not great. Dustin May is hurt. I don't think they've reached the level they have, and I don't feel like it's been fluky, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Level they have is it fluky? I think they just
I don't feel like 607 is their current win percentage. I don't feel like they have. Oh my gosh, this is unsustainable. No. They're just getting lucky.
No.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
We've seen them play well before. My point keeps just going right back to pitching. They're scoring coming into tonight, they were scoring 5.5 runs, 5.53 runs a game. You expect the pitching staff to, how often has it been that the Dodgers starting rotation and their bullpen struggled? And they've done that both at different times of the year. So it just keeps coming right back to that. If they can get that stability there at the front end, I think their bullpen will be fine. Like Vesia coming in tonight was an outlier. Like they're kind of they've been avoiding that. Those big innings haven't really happened aside from playing in Tampa, and we'll just act like that didn't happen because Tropicana is Tropicana. Wacky things happen there. So I think that the starting pitching finds that stability there, prevent runs. Like I said, Dodgers offense will find it. They're scoring 5.5 a game. Sign me up. They can rattle off some wins.
Yeah, we'll end here with Iris. This year, the young guys are hungry. The old guys are trying to remain relevant, and the people from last year are just pissed off. Lots of motivation for the Dodgers. I tend to agree. I think an influx of youth, Bobby Miller, James Outman, Miguel Vargas, Michael Busch could be playing a role at some point as well. I think there's lots of optimism in that group, and you've got JD Martinez in a new place, Jason Hayward trying to redeem himself, and then the standard Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, among the best hitters in baseball. So it's a good recipe the Dodgers have. I think I'm with you. I think the rotation is going to be the sort of the barometer for this team and how things end up going. We appreciate everybody for joining us tonight. If you joined us live on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're listening to this after the fact as part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, thank you as well. You can check out all of our long shows on podcast versions. That's at Apple, that's Google, that's Spotify. Search DodgerHeads. Even if you're not a podcast person, you probably got the Apple Podcast app built into your iPhone, or if you're a Spotify person, we would greatly appreciate. Search DodgerHeads, click subscribe, click follow, click rate and review. We would greatly appreciate that. That helps us as we are trying to develop that podcast side of things. So please go ahead and do that. If you're a YouTube person, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, ring the notification bell here as well. That is Scott Geirman. You can find him at Scott Geirman on Twitter and all of his stuff over on DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night. Dodgers win 9-3, and we say, go Dodgers.